Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining our team of students at Assuaged with Tina Meier. Today we will be talking about her daughter, Megan Meier, and the foundation, the Megan Meier Foundation, about the public health pandemic bullying. So we would love to give student credits for their contributions. Thank you so much, Annette, Dean, Kimberly, Victor, Sahar. We also have Cedric on here. Thank you for joining us with our celebrity feature, Tina Meier. And thank you for making the slides, Kimberly and Shakhah. So before we get started, we'd love to share our rap song introduction video, and we hope you enjoy.
Yeah, okay, organic base, this is what you need. Take you to the future, live a life that can be disease-free. All these toxins are taxing on our bodies, no doubt. All these GMOs and these processed foods we can live without. Yeah, wanna see you live a long time. Contaminants in our water and our food supply. From the meat to the dairy and the fish, what a shame. Not realizing that my insides were inflamed. Hold up, I know it's hard to digest, that's right. I found an organic plant-based website. I even got the app, yo, this is where it's at. Promoting a healthy life, it's time to put it on the map. Assuaged, trust you don't wanna miss. It's time for you to be your best, be your healthiest. Assuaged, trust you don't wanna miss. It's time for you to be your best, be your healthiest. Hey, Assuaged, let's go.
Today we are talking about Megan Meier's story and the Megan Meier Foundation. We are meeting with her mother, Tina Meier. Megan did die by suicide about 3 weeks before her 14th birthday in her teens. A year later, Megan's parents prompted an investigation into the matter of her suicide, and it was attributed to cyberbullying through the social networking website MySpace. Tina, thank you so much for being with us today. We are so honored and blessed with your presence, and we would love to hear your story.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I think, or I feel like I've told Megan's story a million times. And even in that, it still is, I can still see it and walk through it every single time. And so it's, even though I say it or I talk about her story a lot, it's each and every time I do speak about her, it is real. And I hope that I'm always able to kind of pass that along to people. Megan was this amazing girl who wanted to be like all girls, teenage girls that really wanted to have friendships, wanted to fit in, wanted to be part of the groups. Yes, she thought some boys were cute. She loved music, liked shopping. But Megan struggled. She was diagnosed with depression and attention deficit disorder. Unfortunately, Megan, as you read, did die by suicide at the age of 13, just weeks before her 14th birthday. And this was all created because of a cyberbullying hoax by an adult mom pretending to be a boy on MySpace, along with her daughter, who had been friends with Megan since the 4th grade, and another 18-year-old girl. And when people always ask why in the world would an adult do this? I don't have an answer for why this mom did it. I know that many times people will get online and think it's not a big deal to catfish somebody else, to make up a fake account about somebody else because they don't think it's a big deal. The reality is that person on the other side of the computer, the phone, the tablet, whatever it may be, we don't know what they're going through, what their lives are, how they interpret what you're saying or how you're saying it. And unfortunately, even if this family did not intend for Megan to take her own life, the fact is that Megan did take her own life. It turned into this huge tragedy. And this was all simply over wanting to know if Megan was talking about her daughter behind her back. It was a typical friendship spat. And the mom got upset because she thought Megan was talking about her daughter behind her back, which is why she created the fake account, which is why they kept this going on for a period of time. To many people who aren't able to, and because we have limited time, who aren't able to really understand why in the world would Megan take her own life over some things that people said online. Like, why would she do that? I don't care what people say about me, or what's the big deal? You know, I think that we all have to understand that there are days where we can handle more things than other days. There are days when we're feeling good, things are going great. We don't take things quite as personal. Or the person that's been maybe saying negative things, we don't take it as personal that day. But then there are sometimes times that happen in our lives where maybe we're dealing with another family issue, maybe we're dealing with a job issue, another loved one issue. And sometimes those things that are being said, whether it's face to face or it's through social media, sometimes it feels like the things just continue to pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up. And it feels like you can't take a breath and no one's going to give you a break. And I think a lot of times for kids and teens especially, when their brains aren't fully developed and they want to fit in and they don't understand why people are doing this, sometimes feel like they are alone, that everybody knows what everybody is calling them. And unfortunately, I feel that's a lot of it with Megan, that Megan felt like everybody knew what was being said about her. It was going to her old school and her new school. And unfortunately, Megan made a permanent decision for something that could have been temporary and, you know, taking her own life. You know, I always explain to kids that, you know, I think Megan, like many others, felt like she wanted the pain to stop. Megan didn't want her life to end because Megan had plans. She had a big birthday party planned and, you know, she was getting her braces off. So she was looking forward to a lot of things. But I think in that moment, during that time, Megan felt like the pain was not going to stop, felt like this is what everybody knew. And I want to make sure people also understand that suicide is not just a simplistic act. It is not that somebody all of a sudden has a bad day and they think about suicide. For Megan, remember, Megan did struggle with depression and attention deficit disorder. Megan did go to counseling and therapy for years. Megan did struggle with bullying throughout elementary and then into middle school. So this was not just a one situation that happened. This is kind of where those storms kind of all collided. And unfortunately, she didn't reach out and I did not realize a sign soon enough. It is why, you know, after all of this happened with Megan, I realized that there were other families going through this. You know, the anger and the pain, there aren't really words to describe, and I'm sure other parents feel the same way. To describe it accurately, the pain that you feel when you lose a child, especially to suicide, because there's so many unknown answers, or, you know, why, and didn't they know I loved them, and didn't they know I would have done anything for them? You know, how could they do this to their family? And a lot of those things that we'll never get answers for. But I also had anger because I found out about the neighbors, the mother especially, being involved. And what I wanted specifically was I wanted her to pay. I wanted them to pay for what they did. You know, I wanted them to go to jail. I wanted them to be known by people in the community. I wanted everybody to know because I wanted that family to feel the pain that I felt when Megan took her last breath. You know, in the time of grief, we're not always thinking clearly. We want to get people back because it feels like if you could just feel what you've made me feel and just a little bit worse, then maybe guess what? You won't do it again. But the reality is that they could never feel what I felt. At the time, I could not differentiate between that. All I wanted to do was make sure that they paid. So legally, we were not able to get anything done in the state of Missouri, but we did go to a federal trial in Los Angeles where Lori Drew was on trial. She was indicted on 4 federal charges, and the jury found her guilty on 3, which were misdemeanors, and unfortunately, she only faced 3 years in prison at that time. But a couple of years later, the judge did eventually throw the case out, stating it would be unconstitutional to convict Lori Drew, that many other people lie on social media accounts. And I think it was really from that point where I went from vengeance to justice to then realizing that I was never going to get Lori Drew to truly pay for what happened with Megan. And even jail time, what was that really going to do? And I knew that Megan's life was so much more than the Lori Drew and what happened. And so it's where I really took all of my focus and all of my energy, whether it was the bad energy of being angry and not fair, or that good energy, and I focused it all on good. And I started the Megan Meier Foundation to be able to support and inspire actions to end bullying, cyberbullying, and suicide. Because truthfully, there are too many children that go through these same types of situations and families struggling, trying to figure out how to help them, what to do. And we just don't want another child to feel that, you know, their option is taking their own life. We know that there is help and there are many options. So we really try to spread that awareness and education, try to help save kids' lives so that they can go out and be amazing and change the world. And that's really what we continue to do today.
That's just, I have no words. The foundation that came out of this, the hurt that came out of it as well, and everything that you've been through, and having to be that person to make these changes that are so necessary. I mean, bullying is a pandemic, and we're just grateful to hear your story and be able to share that, as well as kind of dive into the foundation.
Tina, thank you so much for sharing that story. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and so you have such a powerful message, and when you're describing Megan, it just sounds so familiar, and I just admire that you're going out there and educating parents and kids. It's going to make a huge difference, and it already has. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Megan Meier Foundation. I know you touched on it, but it was founded by you in 2007, Tina Meier, after her daughter Megan took her own life following a cruel cyberbullying hoax by an adult neighbor posing as a fictitious boy on MySpace. The work to create a world where bullying and cyberbullying they work to create a world where bullying and cyberbullying no longer exist. Since its inception, the Megan Meier Foundation has grown into a global bullying and cyberbullying prevention foundation. Through education, prevention, and intervention, we work to support and inspire actions to end bullying, cyberbullying, and suicide. Bullying and the mental impact. So here we're going to talk a little bit more about bullying. Bullying is a razor-sharp, painful experience that doesn't discriminate against age, race, gender, physical appearance, or status. It can happen anywhere. Bullying happens everywhere at every age and not just in school. No one was born with a predisposition to be bullied, and bullying others is a learned behavior. The best tool that we can provide to our youth is education, and that's a quote from Linda Diaz. And here is a quote that kindness is free. So there's different types of bullying. I want to go over a few. Some of them are obvious and some of them are a little more subtle. So physical bullying consists of kicking, hitting, biting, pinching, hair pulling, and making threats. A bully may threaten to punch you if you don't give up your money or your lunch. There's verbal bullying, which often accompanies physical behavior. This can include name-calling, spreading rumors, and persistent teasing. And that can happen on social media as well. Emotional intimidation is closely related to these two types of bullying. A bully may deliberately exclude you from a group activity, such as a party or a school outing. And again, this happens on social media. Racist bullying can take many forms, making racial slurs, spray painting graffiti, mocking the victim's cultural customs, and making offensive gestures. There's also sexual bullying, is unwanted physical contact or abusive comments. And then cyberbullying, which some of these other types of bullying you can find on cyberbullying, is when one or a group of kids or teens using electronic means via computers and mobile phones, emails, websites, chat rooms, instant messaging, and texting to torment, threaten, harass, humiliate, embarrass, or target another kid or teen. So those are different types of bullying. So what parents can do to take preventative measures. If there has been a crime or if someone is at an immediate risk of harm, call 911. If someone is feeling hopeless, helpless, thinking of suicide, talk to someone now. There's a talk hotline. It's 1-800-273-8255, which is talk. And you can chat with Lifeline or visit the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. For Spanish speakers, there's a number here, 888-628-9454, or visit Auda and Espanol Lifeline. For those who are deaf or hard of hearing, you can call 800-799-4889. There are free and confidential support resources available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If someone is acting differently than normal, such as always seeming sad or anxious, struggling to complete tasks, or not being able to care for themselves, find a local counselor or other mental health services. I think this is important to know where the resources are so somebody can reach out and get access to care.
So I'm going to continue with what parents can do to take preventative measures. So if the child is being bullied in school, a parent can contact the teacher, school counselor, school principal, school superintendent, or the State Department of Education. If the school is not adequately addressing harassment based on race, color, national origin, sex, disability, or religion, you can contact the school superintendent, State Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, Office for Civil Rights, U.S. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. And I'd also like to point out that, parents they're the adult figure spending the most time with their children. So just really encouraging kindness and, staying away from bullying can also really help and make an impact on a child. So what can teachers do to take preventative measures? Well, teachers also play a major role in a child's development. Other than a child's parents, teachers are the most present adult figure in a child's life. So teachers must help children with social and emotional learning, which is vital in preventing bullying. Social and emotional learning involves skills of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship management. So numerous research studies and thousands of individual studies show that social and emotional learning teaching approaches improve emotional well-being, self-regulation, classroom relationships, and kind and helpful behavior among students. Social and emotional learning techniques are also beneficial in reducing mental health issues like anxiety, emotional distress, or depression. And most importantly, for bullying, it's effective in reducing conflicts, aggression, bullying, and anger, all while improving academic achievement, creativity, and leadership. So I think that it's just really important that teachers really incorporate social and emotional learning in their classroom for the benefit of children. So what are the effects of bullying? So it definitely varies. Bullying is especially harmful for children as it negatively affects their physical, social, and emotional health, along with their academics possibly. Those who experience bullying are more likely to develop anxiety, depression, eating disorders, a loss of interest in activities they used to enjoy, and a multitude of other mental and or physical disorders. Bullying victims suffer from a range of emotions, including low self-esteem, helplessness, loneliness, etc. So we're going to talk about some research on cyberbullying. So cyberbullying has become an increasingly more prevalent issue in teens, of course, as social media has become more and more popular. Studies show that teens are more likely to internalize their stressors, resulting in depression, loneliness, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Teens have also externalized these issues through juvenile delinquency and substance abuse. Research shows that victims of cyberbullying feel like they have no power or control, leading to these feelings of aloneness and depression. Moreover, cyberbullying has a different effect than traditional bullying. Studies show that videos and pictures have a deep psychological effect on teens' emotions. Cyberbullying will disrupt teens' relationships with their parents, possibly causing weaker emotional bonds or maybe aggression. The victims of cyberbullying are more likely to commit suicide as a result of being bullied. Cyberbullying is rising due to the prevalence of the internet and social media sites. The harassment can be ongoing and more intense than the traditional forms of bullying.
Statistics on cyberbullying. 25% of teenagers have been the victim of cyberbullying last year, 2020. 10% of children over the age of 9 have been bullied online. 33% of victims have been subjected to online threats. 95% of teens who witness cyberbullying do nothing about it. 50% of teens who are victims of cyberbullying do not tell their parents. Types of cyberbullying. First one is exclusion. In this situation, the cyberbully tries to alienate your friends or make your peer group mock you or hate you, leaving you alone and vulnerable. Number 2, peer pressure. Peer pressure is often used by cyberbullies to get people to help them bully other people. Number 3, stalking. The cyberbully follows you on all your social media and gives you unwanted attention. 4, physical bullying. If the cyberbully knows you in real life, he or she can combine cyberbullying with physical or social bullying. Number 5, blackmail. The cyberbully threatens to reveal confidential information about you that would be embarrassing or even harmful to you. 6, digital character assassination. The cyberbully will stop at nothing to destroy as much of your virtual identity as possible, and usually hopes to destroy your real life as well. 13 Reasons Why. 13 Reasons Why, a series of 13 episodes based on the book by Jay Asher. 13 Reasons Why goes above and beyond teaching one lesson about suicide. It teaches many lessons, and they can help improve the daily life of ourselves and others. If you haven't read the book 13 Reasons Why or watched the series, I highly encourage you to do both. It will change the way you think, act, and speak, and will help you become more aware of the consequences of everything you do and say. It implicitly teaches you the signs to look for when someone may be suicidal and will have a lasting impact on the way you live your life.
Factors contributing to bullying. Underreporting. Research reveals that students consistently report that teachers miss incidents of bullying or fail to help students when asked. The majority of teachers reported feeling unprepared when dealing with bullying and reported that they were giving little to no guidance in classroom management. Bullying is more likely to occur when adult supervision is low or absent. Across many countries, bullying is one of the most underreported forms of abuse due to victim shame and non-existent follow-up. Nothing gets done about the bullying incident or is resolved when reported. A cross-sectional study done by the WHO reveals that 29% of youth report being involved with bullying, either as the victim, the bully, or both. Time for discussion. We will now be starting a discussion based off of today's topic. Some challenge questions too. We encourage you to participate in this discussion by sharing your thoughts and ideas. We will be reading reviewers' comments, and our team of students will be discussing these responses as well, adding your thoughts. Question number 1. Please tell us more about Megan and the things you love the most.
Sure. So Megan was a character. She was funny, had this amazing sense of humor. She could truly laugh to where she couldn't breathe, and she would make me laugh When she would start laughing, I would start laughing and have tears rolling down my face. She liked going out on a boat that we had. So she liked going out. Really, it was to listen to music, lay out in the sun, hang out with friends. She loved scary movies. She thought it was hilarious because a lot of her friends were scared of the scary movies, and she would laugh and kind of thought they were hysterical. She liked Chucky and the Halloween movies and the Jason movie, all of those ones. Megan loved a lot of different music. Back then, she liked Panic at the Disco. She loved R&B. She loved Beyonce. It was Destiny's Child back then. She liked some rap, more of hip hop, I guess. But she was just a funny kid. But she also had this side of her that when something was right, it was right, and it was wrong, it was wrong. And Megan would stand up instantly for something that was happening to another person, especially another individual that she felt maybe struggled more than she did. So she definitely had this thing where if somebody maybe had a physical disability or an intellectual disability, Megan would be the one that would go over and try to help them, take their lunch, or if somebody was making fun of them, she would kind of get in the other person's face and tell them to knock it off, that they're being mean. She really had a connection with youth that had Down syndrome. For whatever reason, she just would, whenever she would see them, whether we were at a library, whether we were at the zoo, it doesn't matter where we were at, she would instantly go over to them. Even, she had no clue who they were, but just start talking. Hi, how are you? She sat down and read a book at the library to one young boy one time. So she had this huge heart. But Megan then also could kind of really struggle on the other end of struggling with her self-worth, and if she was good enough, wanting to be accepted, wanting to look like the other girls, so that she thought if she looked just like them, she would be accepted. And those were the struggles that she really had. But in between that, she was hysterical. She was fun and always moving and doing something.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's just some beautiful aspects of her. And I know many of us have dealt with insecurities. And so, we're not alone. And you just sharing all of this is just amazing. Thank you so much. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add.
Actually,
go ahead. I just wanted to add something, Tina. I just, when you're watching your girls grow, when they're younger, they just, before those puberty, those hormones kick in, they're just a completely different person, not caught up in trying to fit in. And I just have really seen a difference with my own daughter. And I work in the schools. I'm a school nurse. And so I work with kids of this age, and I see the change in them. And there's just so much pressure on girls these days to be perfect and to have the perfect TikTok and those things. So I can understand how Megan must have felt because I see it across the board.
And I think it's really hard for parents because, I kind of throw myself under the bus so that other parents can kind of feel like, okay, we all make mistakes. Like, as parents, we're not perfect and we're never going to be perfect. But what we always try to do is support our children. And sometimes we don't realize the way that we're trying to support them, that we're not really supporting them in the best ways. So when you have a situation like Megan or anybody's child who's going through something or feeling insecure and not pretty enough, or the boy doesn't feel that he's doing as well in sports as the other kids are, whatever it may be, because we personally see them as amazing and wonderful, we always then say, don't worry about them. You're perfect the way you are. Who cares what these other kids think? I don't care if you come in last as long as you tried your best. It doesn't matter if you get invited to the birthday party because you can do A, B, C, or D. The reality is they know that we love them. They know that we're supposed to say those things. A lot of times what happens is that it feels like, or they feel like we don't hear them. And we really don't, because we're trying to self-soothe ourselves because we don't want to know that they're upset or hurt. And then we're trying to make it better for them, when in reality, what we should say when they say, you know, I didn't get invited and it's because the girls are all dressing like this, or, you know, I'm heavy and they're thin, or whatever it may be. Instead of saying, oh, no, they're not, you know, you're perfect, say, you know, listen. First of all, you have to like completely listen, actively listen, not be on the phone, not cook, not do 5 million things, but listen to them, look at them in the eyes and say, I hear that you're saying that you feel different than the other kids, or you're really struggling with this, or you didn't make the team and you're embarrassed. I am really sorry. That's got to be really hard. And I appreciate you talking to me about it. You know, what can I do? How can I help you? I hear what you're going through, but I want to be here to support you. Because then the thing is, they know that you've heard them, you've validated, you haven't cut them off and told them how to fix it really quick, which most of the time we can't fix it. But you've now validated how they feel, which gives them a moment to kind of calm down and then understand that, okay, if I need to talk to you, like, I can come talk to you, but right now I think I've got it. And so I think those are things as parents we keep trying to teach through the foundation and others, to take that deep breath when responding to them. But it's hard being a parent in today's world, I will tell you.
No, I thank you for that's a good reminder and a good way of handling it, because I think we do fall into that trap, and it is almost denial on a parent's part, because you don't want to hear your kids being in pain. It's hard. So, right. And I love that, just listening to them instead of saying, oh, you're fine, you're perfect, just the way you are. Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, Tina, I just wanted to, of course, thank you for joining our presentation here. And another thing that I wanted to point out is that based on the way that you described your daughter, I mean, first of all, she sounds like an absolutely wonderful person. And second of all, what seems to be have been described is actually known really well by the clinical psychology community as being an HSP. I mean, of course, I didn't know your daughter, so I can't, make that distinction. But based on everything that you described, she sounded like a very highly sensitive person, a truly caring person. Someone that wouldn't even think twice about, offering someone, a helping hand who seems to be facing some kind of injustice. And oftentimes, those kinds of people, especially people who are dealing with, problems like ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities, anything within that bracket, they tend to have the capability to be able to do incredible things. It's just at a young age when they're trying to work their way through everything, all of those emotions are just all over the place. And it's just, I just wanted to thank you for, being, here with us and here with so many other people to help spread the word about how important it is to, like you mentioned, actively listen to people, just actively be there, give them a space to, present who they are, and let them handle all of those things that are happening inside their own head. And I'll admit, being someone who struggled with social anxiety disorder when I was in my teens, I empathize with everything that has been said to a very high degree.
Well, thank you.
Question number 2. As a mother who suffered a great loss, what are some things you recommend to avoid something like this happening to a loved one?
The hard thing is about mental health is that when you are the family, you have seen many ups and downs with your child. And typically, if your child has been diagnosed, even getting them to the point of getting diagnosed is usually a long, painstaking process. It takes time. And once you get your child diagnosed, then to be able to find either the right therapy, whether you do medication or you don't do medication, it is not an exact science. So it's not like, here's what we do, here's how we're going to fix it. It is many times a trial and error, and sometimes psychologists work and sometimes they don't work with that child. And so I think what's hard for families is that you're going through all of these roller coasters, and the specialists out there, the professors and all of the doctors that study why people die by suicide always say that there are signs. There are signs that you can see. And I think that somebody on the outside can see the signs a lot easier than that person that's right there in it, that parent, because whenever you have a child who's been struggling for so long and all of a sudden you see their spirits lifted, they're happy again, and they're hanging out with friends, and they're looking forward to things, and everything seems great, and then all of a sudden they make an attempt, and you're like, well, why? How? What happened? And on the outside, a doctor can say, well, when children have been struggling for so long and all of a sudden they peak up and act like everything is fine, things are great, that could be a time of concern, because they are knowing that the pain is going to come to an end. So there could be that time of where they're thinking, okay, I'm giving it another week and I am going to take my own life on this date. That burden, everything I'm feeling is going to end. And this is just a huge relief for them. But for a family that loves them is just excited to see them happy. So that can be really hard. I think that anybody that is a part of raising young children, raising youth, should be able to go and get a training on mental health first aid. They could do signs of suicide, to be able to look at signs, because I think it is really important. And I think sometimes we think it could just be hormonal. It could just be something they're going through. They're just, kids are going to act like that. But there are specific signs that you can look for. And I think that's what I wish more parents would be able to do. I know it's scary. The word's scary, and we don't want to think about that ever happening with our own kids. But even if you are trained and you at least know some signs, even if your child comes to you about a friend of theirs who's struggling or who said they wanted to kill themselves, maybe there are now things that where you know the right steps. And so I think that there's nothing that's going to be perfect, or anything that we do on this presentation that's ever going to make it perfect, and no other family is going to go through it, unfortunately, because I wished that was the case. But I think through talking about the word suicide, I think making sure that when kids are at an appropriate age, they usually are implementing this in middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But we know that children that are younger, that are in elementary school, absolutely have taken their own lives, unfortunately attempted. And so I think it's looking at where your child is at on that spectrum, that level, and then being able to talk to them openly and honestly about, I did a training today, or I watched and heard Megan's story, and, I wanted to talk to you about this. Have you ever had thoughts of suicide or killing yourself? And if you have, then I want to talk to you about it. Here's some things that we can do. We can, go talk to the pediatrician. There is help. You're not alone. And make sure you prepare for it ahead of time. So make sure that if your child does say yes, that you have thought about, okay, what's my next step of what I'm going to do? I am going to stay with them. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to contact our pediatrician or primary care doctor. If they have a counselor, I'm going to talk to the counselor. And making sure that if it is an imminent threat where that child has said, yes, I have thought about suicide and I have a plan to kill myself, They know when the plan is, they know what they're going to do, and they have the actual means to be able to do it. That is where it's a high emergency. You need to take them to a local emergency room, contact your pediatrician on their emergency line to make sure that they get that support that they need right then, so that you do not say, oh, well, they're just blowing steam. You don't ever want to take a chance. And if you know how, the signs of what to do when somebody, goes into cardiac arrest, or you need to provide CPR, you want to know the same thing about suicide. You want to be able to provide those same steps. And so that's really what I would encourage all schools, all parents, all caregivers to be able to know the signs, understand, teens and mental health first aid. And I think open conversations will help us a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And does anybody have anything that they would like to weigh in on before going to the next slide?
Tina, I wanted to ask, just from because I work with children, teenage, and I'm a nurse. I'm trained to look for those signs and symptoms, like you mentioned. But one of the things that I have been reading is that recently there's a recent phenomenon where kids are not showing the signs. They're the typical signs of how they dress, if they're giving things away, if they have a plan. But a lot of these kids, and this has happened at our local high school, that we've had a couple of suicides recently in the last couple of years, and these kids are very involved in sports, and they have a great friend base, and it's not the typical things that you would see, those typical signs and symptoms for a teenager that seems depressed and suicidal. So I know that this is your passion, and you're educated in all pieces of that. Just wondering if you've seen that, and maybe that's because of cyberbullying. What have you observed?
So no, I think quite often we all want to almost put everything in a box. I mean, we all do. If somebody is depressed, we kind of, our brain kind of thinks of, okay, they kind of don't want to talk to people. Maybe they kind of, dress in dark clothing. They're kind of, that old thought of like, well, they're just depressed. They don't want to talk. Leave them alone. I think that we see kids who are, you look at them and it looks like their life is phenomenal. They're, very well liked. They may get good grades. They may be on the sports team. They may be very popular. And then you hear about them taking their own lives. I think a lot of it is there may not be those big outward signs of them, changing their eating behaviors, changing the way that they dress, showing, getting off of the phone quickly, or not hanging out with friends quite as much. But there's something that's been going on. A lot of times the stress and the pressure and the things that mount, they do it in ways because they know that they are being seen, especially if they're popular. They're being seen by many people, and they're always on, they're always on the stage, essentially. So if they start having bad days or they start showing it, then all of a sudden it's like, what's wrong with them? And they're kind of so fearful that people will start seeing less of them. So they put on a really good mask. They go into classes, they go into, their sporting events, they go into these things with everything is great. And it's when they step away that all of a sudden, all of the stress, the pressures, the things that they're going through, they keep that internalized. And so I think it's why it is so important to be able to have mental health, do evaluations, having a universal health screening for children, having it done yearly, not just for the kids that we know are diagnosed with depression or bipolar, making sure that that screening is done around the board for every single student and staff member, to be able to then know, are there things that we need to talk about? What are signs of depression? What are things that you may feel if you are struggling with different things? And who can you go to and who can you talk to? But we do see quite often, especially with males, they have a harder time expressing themselves, talking about things, their masculinity. It's very hard. And so being seen as talking about your emotions and all of that may come as weakness to them. So I think it's really important also, to talk to, males about that masculinity, that having feelings has nothing to do with your strength or masculinity, that we all do have feelings and that they have a right to be able to express it. And so I think those are really important things to be able to continue to keep pushing through schools, because the reality is schools are where to push it. We don't know, every home situation and home life does not allow for that. And sometimes it can be the complete opposite when they get back into that home life. So many times it's where school is the stability. It's the place where they can get a consistent message and consistent supports. And so I think those are things that I wish we would see in our school systems.
Yeah, I agree. It has to be put into the ed code, or along with, they're trying to push things through sexual health and different things that put it into the ed code. And it's the same thing with mental health. I love that across the board evaluation.
Yes.
And, we have access to kids at the school, so it's the perfect place. So
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the great thing. That's where we've seen, even through counseling that we do at our foundation, we see that going directly to the kids at school, we have much better access. They are there consistently. We don't have to worry about transportation barriers or parents getting too busy. And so, it's what's hard then for schools, because schools have a lot of other things going on too. It's not an easy situation at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So of course I have like a whole bunch of my own questions, but I guess instead we'll definitely stick to what we have written here in the slides. This is very important as well. What kind of laws have been passed in honor of Megan?
So in the state of Missouri, we didn't have any laws to do with cyberbullying, or electronic communications, is what they call it. And after Megan's case, we were, the FBI did investigate what happened with her. They did take it all the way up to Washington to be able to look to see, is there a crime? Is there something that can be done? And unfortunately, at the time, there were no laws that were in place that really took into account cyberbullying or electronic communications. And the FBI came back and said, listen, we're sorry, but you need to get the laws changed if you want something to be done in the future. So that's when we worked with the state of Missouri, and we worked with the governor and an internet task force that was issued and put together. And we, went and testified and brought before it Senate Bill 818, which really looked at our stalking laws, our harassment laws, child endangerment laws. And what it really did is amended those and included electronic communication and the harassment and stalking. And so Senate Bill 818 for the state of Missouri states that if you repeatedly use electronic communications, doesn't matter if it's a tablet, a gaming device, an iPhone, or an Android, if it's electronic and you use it to repeatedly target another person or group of people to threaten, annoy, harass, stalk them, that you can be charged as a juvenile. And then there's also the felony for the adult. Since that was done in 2008, all states have cyberbullying laws that are in place. Some are much, much better than others. The reality is that by the time they even get passed, they're outdated because of the advancement in the technology. And truthfully, even the best laws that are out there, there are so many different loopholes that we all are struggling with. So a loophole of somebody, it's much easier to be able to find out who sent what when they use their actual name, their account, and you can watch it and see it happening. But when they use a fake account, and when they use a fake number, and when they do this anonymous piece, and now you've got multiple kids who are logging in and creating this fake account, it can get this web can get really crazy. And the reality is that even laws that are out there means that when a situation happens, the police department has to see that there is enough evidence to show that it is an actual crime, and that they have to then get all of the reports. So they have to subpoena all records. It's just this long, drawn-out process. And when they don't know who's behind it and it's anonymous, it can be much harder. So even say that you get a case that it's you know who the person is, right? You can see that they are cyberbullying. It's against the law. It's clear. The police write a report about it. The prosecuting attorneys want to prosecute the case. Sounds great, but the reality is that any defense attorney can pretty much come in and then be able to look and say, well, yes, well, my client did create that account, or my client did say A, B, C, or D. They did it one time. Their phone was sitting out during practice, or they had friends over, or their phone was there. I mean, they didn't send all of those. We don't know who sent all of those, who logged in. So the reality is, unless you can specifically 100% prove who sat behind the keyboard, the gaming device, the phone, and sent those messages, those images, it is going to be really hard to be able to get all of them cleared up in court. And that's why we realize that there's so many loopholes. Unless it's face recognition for every single text and it records us for every single thing that we do, and then it can be used as evidence, we are going to go through these loopholes a lot, which means that it's why we have to educate, bring awareness about this, so that kids understand the other piece, the hurtful piece, the empathetic piece of what this does to others.
Yeah. So it sounds like instead of turning this into a strictly legal issue, it would be much more helpful, I guess, in a sense, to plug the tap and, of course, educate people. I see what you mean.
Yeah, if there was one law that was perfect, it would be great. But the reality is, even the best ones out there, there's tons of loopholes, and kids are smart. People are smart when they want to get around things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. I mean, the number of people out there that are just spamming people, actually like spam people that are fake profiles are there as well. But I know that's completely different. Like, I mean, that's not bullying. That's just trying to get somebody's money or their private information or something like that. But it's just, it is unprecedented. I mean, things are changing even the different ways in which we can do all sorts of crazy things on the internet to harm another person they're increasing, just because of how sophisticated things are becoming.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's I guess of course instilling empathy into other people and showing them, obviously why that's important is going to be the ultimate solution.
Yeah,
I understand that for sure. So let's see. Oh, these are really good questions. So yeah, what do you think causes bullies to do what they do? Where's the core of their actions lie?
So there's not one specific group. It used to always be thought of that it was the kids who always got picked on that then in turn turned into bullies themselves. Well, that does happen. That does happen where kids are the ones who are targeted and bullied. And they can flip this switch where all of a sudden they now feel like, I'm not going back there. You know what? I'm getting anybody else who gets in my way. I've been there. This is what I'm doing. And then it used to always be that it's always those kids that have problems at home. I used to hear it all the time when I was younger too, of, you never know what's going on in their home life. And, they're just acting that way. And we need to pray for them, or we need to, really think about this, or think. The reality is that yes, people have a lot of dysfunction at homes. And certainly we know that kids who are struggling at home, that come into school, that maybe are not there, they're physically there, but, not being present to be able to learn really well or interact with kids really well because their brain is elsewhere. Certainly can take things out on others. They can get more frustrated. They can get more angry. But what we really see is it is the popular kids. These kids are not seen quite as often because they fly under the radar of adults. These are kids that typically have good grades, they have good relationships with friends, they can turn it on for teachers. They, many times are the ones that if it's everybody wants to hang around and be around them, then they can kind of lead this group. So many times it is those kids that, isolate somebody because, well, they're not cool enough, their family doesn't have enough money, they're overweight, they're this, they're that, don't invite them or don't do this, or belittling another person to kind of make themselves feel better. The reality is that everybody is trying to find a place of where they fit in that hierarchy. And when they find this place that they fit in, and they realize that other people around kind of follow them and support them, then they many times will take advantage of that if they want to take it in a negative way. They can take advantage and be this really cool person that's very popular and have that leadership skill that can lead people, but do it in this really phenomenal, great way. But if they want to take it in a negative way and belittle other people, they then feel like they have that power to do so. And really, who's going to believe that they would do it? So they're very easy to be able to say to a teacher, oh, come on, I would never do that. Or that's not who I am. And they're not the kids that get in trouble all the time. And so they fly under the radar much more.
I think oftentimes a lot of people don't acknowledge the fact that oftentimes these things aren't outright bullying, and there are very micro forms of bullying as well. Just like a simple snicker, or looking at somebody the wrong way, or just manipulating in a weird kind of, I guess you could say, almost like in the same way that a narcissist would manipulate people, in that sense of appearing as being that person who is. That someone is in a regal position, or my opinion matters more than anybody else's, and so therefore you even looking at me in a way that would question my authority is therefore a not worth even acknowledging, and therefore you should be and so you turn the person that looks at that person in a way that is saying, listen, you're not the authority. They're already a threat, and so that person is going to belittle them and be very unfair, So
no, it's hard. It's not one specific thing, and that's why bullying is so hard, and it's so hard to put your finger on because it's different in every situation. And even like you were saying, it could be these little microaggressions, but a lot of times kids who have been targeted for a long period of time typically can become hypersensitive. So if they've been the ones that have been the target of, bullies for several years, and then they walk by and they hear somebody snicker or laugh or whisper or say something, many times they think it's about them because they are just so used to these things happening. And so that can sometimes be, and it may not be about them, but they now have struggled with it so much that they feel like it's always about them, and that's really hard. And I think that's where health plays into this too, that other question of it's not only their physical health, but it is their mental health. I mean, when you all of a sudden cannot go into a school and you don't feel safe physically or mentally in a situation, you're not able to learn. Your eating habits can certainly change. You don't have the same relationships with friends or interact socially the same that you would if you did not have all of these things around you. We know that kids who have been severely bullied, that in brain scans, those brain scans can show similar brain scans to combat soldiers who have post-traumatic stress syndrome. And kids can perceive social rejection, so being excluded from their peers. They can perceive social rejection the same, their body feels this, their brains feel this, the brain feels this at the same as having, no food, physical harm. Their bodies kind of react in that same way. And so we know that, all of these things, physically and mentally is all part of the health piece. And it's why it's really important to make sure that when we are seeing these signs that we do get kids help, we listen to them, we support them, and provide them the right help so that they do not have these lifelong health issues that many times kids can struggle if it never gets handled.
I think that's like an adolescent form of CPTSD, right?
Yeah.
Where essentially, these kids, they see something and then they internalize it and think that it has to do with them. And then, of course, even when people are just acting completely normally, let's say in the lunchroom, that could be almost like going into a war zone for someone who is experiencing those kinds of things. So, thank you so much for, extrapolating on that point.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure these kids have high levels of cortisol because they're so stressed out.
Yep, they do. They talk about cortisol levels. They talk about their adrenal glands. They talk about all of these things that can lead into chronic health issues, into adulthood. And so that's why it's so important for us to really understand that it's not just a rite of passage, kids kind of get through it, that these things are really, they're real. They need to be validated, listened to, and that we need to get them the right help.
I would love to kind of chime in on this, with the cyberbullying and, those who are bullied. And I just really appreciate you tying in health in that, because I personally went through a lot of bullying as a child. I had a stepfather who was a registered sex offender. So not only was I dealing with stuff at home, but I went to school to deal with bullying for being born with a deformity. And so growing up, I became a cyberbully. I'm not going to lie. I made fake profiles and I went after the people that I felt attacked by. And I didn't know that there was so much damage. I had gotten into a fight with one of my best friends and I pulled that card, that cyberbullying card. I made a fake account. And she told me that I made her want to kill herself over it. It destroyed me in so many ways, because people don't know the harms. So I think it's so important for bullies to really take a look at why they're bullying, because it's just a level of knowledge that's not out there. So.
Yeah, pain doesn't, when we feel pain or hurt, there's not something that pops up, this word bubble that says, hey, you're feeling this because of this. It's just you feel that instant thing and it's like that vengeance that get them back. I'm going to let them know how they made me feel. Do they know what they did to me? And so we have that instant reaction. And so it's much easier the older you get, when your brain actually fully develops, and that piece of your brain where it's the thought processing and not being so instinctively reacting. But those are things with kids that we can teach them, that it's okay to feel upset and it's okay to feel mad or hurt or embarrassed and anger. And, when you feel that way, what can you do to calm down? So talking to them about actual feelings, the words, expressing them, and then how to be able to work through it. Because many times they don't even know what they're feeling, or they don't even know how to express that, which is really important.
I guess one thing that I wanted to go back to was looking at how, I guess you could say, underdeveloped I guess the internet was back in the 2000, in the early 2000s. And I guess my question would be, what do you think were the biggest difficulties of, bringing awareness, around that time, and helping people to realize that it's, bullying isn't just something that happens in the real world?
I think the hardest thing is, I think there's a positive piece, because Megan's story, did explode and went viral. So the one thing was that in the beginning, when I talked about it, people did really want to hear. They did want to hear about Megan's story. But then what happens is that they want to hear about that. But when you then say, okay, so let's talk about in your life, let's talk about this, it's kind of like, well, that doesn't happen in our family, or that I won't handle it that way, or I'll do it this way. And so I think it's one of those things that through the years we've been really We understand that sharing Megan's story, while it's important to be able to continue because her story is still relevant, that we really have to shift after we tell her story. It's really a way to be able to step through to get them to understand that Megan was real, that this is not just a mom who's going out and just telling a story and, you know, giving you a lecture, that in your life, in this world that you guys are living in. So we really bring it into the stress, the pressures, the things that they're going through, the anxiety, to get them to open up and talk about it, instead of using the words so much of, are you being bullied? Are you being cyberbullied? They're instantly going to say, no, 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 you're overreacting. But if you ask them about, you know, do you struggle with stress or anxiety? Do you worry about, you know, maybe you don't worry about what everybody thinks, but what about making the team? Or what about getting good grades so you can get the scholarship? Do you worry about that? So when we start talking to them about those issues, then we can get them to open up and talk. It's just finding that different avenue. And then they realize, and they're like, well, yeah, there's people that are jerks, you know, yeah, there's people that pick on other kids all the time that's bullying, or yeah, we see people calling people out in social media. So then now we're able to really have more of that discussion and dialogue, where back when it was dial-up and, you know, just MySpace and AOL Instant Messenger, it was a little bit more detached and adults didn't quite understand much of it then at all. So we definitely have progressed, but it still is constantly, it's not going to happen to me type situation. And we have to get through that and realize that, let's hope it does not, but we need to be prepared for things.
It looks like Megan Meier Foundation has raised a lot of money to combat bullying. If you mind my asking, how much progress have you made with the foundation?
You know what, in the grand scheme of things with nonprofits, we are still a baby nonprofit. So we have, I think a lot of times, I think unless you're in the nonprofit world, it's kind of like, I think that they think money just kind of funnels in. And we get donations from individuals around the country that just, you know, make a donation, whether it's $5 or $500. We have fundraising events, so like golf tournaments and a trivia night. And then we write for grants, and we do a lot of all of those pieces too. But our budget is really right around under 300,000 for our income and our expenses. And so while we do a lot of programs and a lot of outreach, we're still always striving, because the reality is, even though a nonprofit, you do not make profit. You use that money to be able to hire people to be able to provide more programs, more services, more counseling. And so those are reasons why we're always looking for other avenues or ways to be able to raise money, because the end goal is to get counselors into schools to help children and help parents, and making sure that we have all the supports out there that we can have. So we are really lucky to have a really phenomenal people around the world that, you know, that do care. And so we are very lucky with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you so much for doing this cause. I mean, you know, all of you out there who are listening, you know, be sure to donate. I mean, if it's, you know, anything, whether it be, you know, $1 to $50, you know, anything is appreciated.
Yeah, every dollar helps in nonprofits. That is absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Assuaged's bottom line is concerned, one of the things that we care the most about is making sure that people are being given the opportunity to live very healthy lifestyles, you know, be it physical or mental health. And unfortunately, it is an oftentimes misunderstood fact that people who bully others are oftentimes, they have been bullied themselves. And they're also, many of them are suffering from their own kinds of mental illnesses. And of course, the best way to combat negative health or mental health is to lead a healthier lifestyle. They always say that exercise clears the brain, brings a lot of clarity. And what is the next best thing for exercise? Or actually, the most important thing is, of course, what's in your fridge. And exercise is supplementary to that. But as far as leading a healthier lifestyle, going vegan is a wonderful option. And the excess of prescription drugs, my personal belief, I'm not sure if the rest of the community shares this belief as well, is that that should be a last, that should be the last thing that you go to, and that meat-based or inorganic foods can definitely put a damper on one's mental health, especially done in excess. And of course, when it comes right down to it, this is the direction that you can take if you want to become a more loving person and stop yourself before you find yourself bullying others or, insulting others or just being disrespectful overall.
Wow, this was such an insightful meeting with you today, Tina. Thank you so much for sharing Megan's story, and you've taken such a large amount of your time today spending it with us and our team, so we are incredibly grateful. We look forward to creating the video contents and the blog contents and sharing the story and doing our part to get the awareness out there. We do have a campaign right now, Stop the Hate with Delta 8, and I will share the video with you. We aren't a nonprofit, but we are getting to the point of trying to create revenue. So it is hard to have a business model to educate and advocate. And your cause is very centered on bullying and Megan's story, and it's so impactful. I tell people all the time about the episode on Web of Lies. I believe it's season 2, episode 3. Friend request. Yeah, I've seen it many times, and I swear the acting is just amazing. You could feel what you went through in that entire episode, and so we are doing
it one time. So I only watch anything like that. I watch it one time and it's done. And then I'm kind of like, because it's my life, it's one of those things of where you're it's too close to it, but. Yeah, they did a good job in explaining the story in a really good way. So yeah, I was happy with that.
Megan was sobbing at the computer.
They hate me. Everyone hates me.
By now, an all-out online war has broken out between Megan, Josh, and their friends.
Megan started lashing back, saying, "I'm not these things, you're these things." I was looking at this whole entire tornado.
Oh, sweetie, this is everyone in my
asked you to log off.
School,
why did you not log off when I asked you to?
You're gonna blame me for this?
No, this is why your father and I give you rules.
You're supposed to be on my side.
Megan!
My mom was really mad because my sister wasn't listening to her. So she was mad and ticked off when she got home, and it didn't help the situation because Megan was upset.
Megan, stop!
Megan!
Hey.
Let go of
What's
me.
going on? What's going on? What's happening?
You're being cruel again, Dad.
Who's being cruel? Megan, who's being cruel?
Bullies on MySpace.
Oh, Megan, they don't even know you. Sweetie, everything will be fine. Wow, it is really coming down out there.
It is, yeah. I'm really rethinking this MySpace thing.
Yeah, I can see why.
I was trying to talk to Ron to explain to him what was going on, and he was frustrated with all of it. I knew that letting Megan kind of cool off for, a few minutes would be fine. 20 minutes probably went by.
She's really fragile right now. You know? It's just hate how these kids treat each other.
I just wish...
All of a sudden, I just stopped in mid-sentence. I just got this feeling that ran through my entire body that's just god-awful feeling. It just was this feeling that I had as a mom. I mean, I don't know how to explain it.
Stop the hate, stop it. Delta 8, look at us. Yeah, see us high, you see us in the sky. Ooh, we still flying, let's go.
Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Lean to the side and rock it. Be your highest. Woo, we poppin'. Hit the site, go do some shopping. CBD got plenty options. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. I love my gummies. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Cause they so yummy.
Yummy gummies. Tag a friend, tag a lover, tag a Delta 8. Come discover, yummy, make it pop, feel so good, I'm on top, taste so good, you can't compare, vegan gummies, Delta 8, premium ingredients, Delta 8, vegan gummies, taste so good, you can't compare, I don't even wanna share, no, Delta 8 gummies, we the flyers, money. You can be your best, Delta. You can be your best. Ay.
Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Lean to the side and rock it. Be your highest. Ooh, we poppin'. Hit the site, go do some shopping. CBD got plenty options. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. I love my gummies. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Cause they so yummy. Be your healthiest, so you can live longer. Keep on fighting every day with Delta 8. You getting stronger. We believe in you, but you gotta believe in yourself. Don't try to do it all alone. Be your highest is here to help. We got your back, got your front, rocking side to side. Gummies help you relax. Now you catching vibes. It's for all the vets all across the globe. We feel your pain. Trust us when we say we know. Let's go. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Lean to the side and rock it. Be your highest. Who we poppin'? Hit the site, go do some shopping. CBD got plenty options. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. I love my gummies. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Cause they so yummy.
You can be your best, Delta. You can be your best, ace. You can be your best version of yourself, Delta 8. You can be your best, Delta. You can be your best, 8. You can be your best version of yourself.
Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Stop the hate with Delta 8. Be your highest boom and elevate to the moon. Lean to the side and rock it. Be your highest. Who we poppin'? Hit the site, go do some shopping. CBD got plenty options. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. I love my gummies. Ooh, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Cause they so yummy.
Well, thank you so much. And, the time has been invaluable. We look forward to hopefully meeting with you again. And going to the conclusion slide, we encourage everyone that has watched this show today to donate to the cause. And you can go to meganmeyerfoundation.org/donate or just go to the website itself. I highly encourage you to watch that season on a Web of Lies and become educated about cyberbullying and the damages it does to people. So thank you, Tina, for the time you've taken. Our entire team is immensely grateful.
Yeah, thank you so much. You guys were wonderful, and I am so happy that we're going to be able to keep spreading the education, spreading the awareness. So thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you so much, Tina.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I send my love to you and your family.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
bye.
All right, bye. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
too.
Thank
Take care, everyone.
Bye.